In most professional kitchens, you'll have a box like this. They're cheap, blunt knives that belong to no one. They're not dangerous. They're not sharp, but they have a purpose and they can be used for loads of different jobs that I would never even think about using these for. So you can imagine my reaction when HORL reached out to me to say that my video guy could sharpen one of these God-forsaken knives better with their rolling knife sharpener than I, a professional chef, can do on his Japanese knives with his whetstone. Dreamers. I told you that sharp knives are more dangerous. All right, so this is how this is going to go down. I'm going to sharpen my knives with my whetstones, and you're going to pick one of these to sharpen with this.
Great. I haven't got a mic.
Doesn't matter. You just need a knife.
There we go. We'll go for this one.
Like, it's blunt, but it has a decent profile. I think you could have a good stab at that. To decide who is the winner, we're going to look at the edges in detail underneath the microscope to see objectively what the edge looks like. Then we're going to use them in what is the most respected knife test known to chefs, and that is to cut chives. Before we get into that, we need to look at the process of sharpening a knife and what actually makes a knife razor sharp. So fundamentally, a knife is a pressure multiplier, and pressure equals force divided by area. And so the smaller the area, the more pressure for a given force that you're able to apply to whatever it is that you're cutting. And that means that it's going to go through it a lot easier, which is why a really sharp knife feels so effortless to cut with and why a blunt one requires so much more force. So a sharp knife, very simply, looks like that. You've got two straight edges going to a very thin point. And these can be as thin as 1 micrometer, which is really quite small. Whereas a blunt one could be, up to 10 micrometers, which means to be able to cut the same, you have to apply 10 times more force with the blunt knife than you do the sharp knife. And that's why they say that a sharp knife is safer, because it requires you to use less force. But personally, I think that's absolute garbage, because if you've got a really razor sharp knife, you can just brush the edge and you're going to cut yourself, which to me is way more dangerous if you know what you're doing. I mean, if you're really leaning into something to try and cut through it, obviously don't do that. Just respect the blade, however sharp it is, and you're still going to find that a sharper knife is more dangerous because it's just got so much more potential to cut. So let's take a blunted edge, and it's going to look broadly like this. The aim of sharpening is to make that tip much more narrow. And the way that we would do that is to start to take metal off one of the edges. And so I'm going to apply this over a whetstone with a consistent angle, ideally. And then the excess metal, as you'll see, gets pushed over the top. And when you can feel this on one side, it's then time to switch and start sharpening the other edge. That's really important, because as I used to do and stop just before that, what you end up with is a flat edge that then is still rounded and doesn't actually meet the middle. And so the very tip hasn't had any material removed, and so you've still got a blunt knife. Okay, so you've got a burr on one side, and then you've gone on the other side and got a burr going on the other. The last step of sharpening, if you did that correctly, is to take that burr off with a strop, and you can use leather or any bit of fabric, really. And what that's doing is removing that burr to expose the hopefully sharp edge. So that's what we're aiming for, but how can we trip ourselves up with this process? So the hardest thing is to maintain that consistently across the whole stroke as we're sharpening it. And you've got the added difficulty that the edge is not perfectly straight, it's curved. And so to maintain that angle and that connection, you need to rotate the blade on the tip. And it's a really difficult thing to do. So when this is new, when this was brand new, you get a feel for when you're in perfect connection with the stone, because that whole edge is at the 15 degrees. But over time, because there's imperfections in my technique, you can see that the edge of the blade doesn't actually stay perfect, because I'm starting to get imperfections every time that I do this across different stones, different angles, everything else, that I don't have a straight edge on my blade. I've got a slightly rounded one. And so it's harder to feel, for me, where that edge is. Now, I've got an angle device that helps me keep broadly there, and my knives are pretty good, but to get them perfect, I have to admit, I'm not able to do it. The rolling knife sharpener has set out to tackle one of the biggest problems of using a whetstone, which is maintaining the angle. So this is the HORL, and it's designed by the Germans. And the Germans take a lot of pride in designing and engineering things with precision. They tell me this is no different. And to demonstrate that, they've sent me their 500-page technical document. Now, we can talk about the specs and the engineering behind it and things like that, but the thing about great engineering is the solutions to these things are often very simple. And this is a simple idea. It's a block that holds the knife at the angle you want and a rolling knife sharpener. Like, it's innovative and just works. And this is that. The knife goes up against it, and then you simply roll the edge. There's an analogy here for what this is and why it works so well. So these whetstones, if you've got perfect technique, are absolutely sensational. And the edge that you'll get with doing that is going to be unbelievable. And that's a bit like a very skilled chef using a paring knife. You can use this to peel and do loads of other different things. And if you're good with it, you're not going to need anything else. This is basically a peeler. With this, almost anyone can peel a beautiful vegetable. You can turn an artichoke with it. You can do loads of lovely things. And it just makes it really easy, really quick, and really precise. Because it's taking away the variability. I can angle this basically however I want. And that might mean that I dig in. It might mean that I come off and I miss the peel. Whereas with this, how this is angled, it just stays just below the surface. And you can just quickly whip round an apple and take off, you know, an even layer of peel at the same angle all the way around. And this is essentially what this is doing. It's taking out the variability. We've also got the premium set today, which has got a 3000 grit and a 6000 grit whetstone, so we can really, well, I can't, so Simi can really hone the edge. So that's the HORL sharpener. Right, so we're going to look at these blades underneath the microscope before we start. So this is my workhorse chef's knife. I've had it for about 6 years. And yeah, I've loved it that whole time, and I've kept it in as good a condition as possible. I haven't yet hauled this knife. Is that a verb? And this bit's the curved part of the blade, and it looks a bit more damaged because that takes a lot of maneuvering on the chopping board when I'm mincing stuff or chopping stuff. That reflection is the blade, that is the edge, and there shouldn't be anything. Like, if it was a perfect 1 micron edge, you shouldn't be able to see any reflection off that tip, really. But there's obviously a significant reflection from the middle of that edge. So this is Simeon's edge. You can see it's actually corroded. It's got some rust on the blade itself, and it looks to be slightly rounded off. And there, it's like there's not much difference in the angle between the main part of the blade and the edge. It's going to take a lot of work to get this down to having a flat, perfect edge again. How much reflection there is, that is the very edge, and it looks almost like a sort of flat reflective surface, which is why this knife is so bad at cutting and why I can run my finger along it. It's barely got an edge at all. It's just kind of slightly, it's just so blunt. So this is the edge of a brand new razor blade that goes in safety razors. And these things, if you've ever tried to mess about with one, are so brutally sharp. Like, they will literally cut through anything. They glide across hundreds and thousands of hairs on your face without grabbing or pulling or anything. They just go straight through. So this is basically a perfect blade that no chef's knife is ever really going to achieve because of the constraints of how it has to be strong, it has to be resilient, whereas this is disposable. It only has to be sharp a few times. There's no reflection off that. So this is what a perfect edge looks like. All right, so I've got a burr across the entire length of that now. So it just it makes me nervous.
Oh, right, yeah.
So this is the sharpened side where I've started to push the metal over. This is 1000 grit, which is relatively rough. But I'm quite pleased with that. It looks flat. Well, I'm not going to make it any better for you. So I'm offering no comment. So Simeon's got to take off a lot more metal than I do because my knife's already in pretty good shape. This one is in really bad shape. And having something as hard as diamond is great for this task because we need to remove a great deal of metal. And given that this is 10 on the hardness scale and a metal like this is a lot softer, it's going to have a relatively easy job of taking that material off. All right, so that is the burr that we've been looking for. And Simeon's now going to sharpen this side to then take that burr off so the apexes meet in the middle. And then once we're there, we can hone it with the 1000 before finishing with the 3000 and 6000 grit stone supplied with the premium set. So this is my edge after a 6000 grit stone. And you can see it looks a lot smoother now than it did after the 1000.
That's how sharp it is. Chris.
You just cut yourself.
Metal.
Idiot. I told you sharp knives are more dangerous.
Yeah, legit.
All right, while Simeon's putting on a plaster, I'm just going to swap out the discs. They're really easy. They're on a nicely machined locking mechanism on one side. So that's the extra fine, and this is the fine. And so to avoid further disaster, I'm going to finish this knife off.
Oh no, please. I've done the whole thing. You just know that's so sharp.
Tell me how you know that, Simeon.
Yeah.
So I would do 3 passes, feel that there's a burr, flip it, do 3, 2, 1, and then we'll finish on the leather.
Cool.
Now I think actually that could probably do with a few more runs, because can you see how on the left top there's not the rough deep marks, but then there's where my finger is now, there's more. So if we keep working on that blade with the 6000, eventually it's all going to look like that mirror. So this is the 6000 edge, which I'm happy to say on that side you can see, I mean that's polished all the way to the top. And there's a little bit of a burr on this side, so we're just going to strop that, which should give us the perfect finish. So this is the edge after we've stropped it. So let's compare that to my knife. It's had 6000 grit. And so this is my knife at the same stage. It's had 6000 grit and a strop. Okay, so we've got some chives here. I'm going to use my knife that I sharpened. Simeon's knife is now yours. Simeon, how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, great.
Simeon's knife that he sharpened with a HORL, and Andy's knife, whoever he was. So I was told by a Michelin-starred chef, no less, that tomato skins will blunt a knife. And since, going through this, I'm convinced that if you sharpen your knife properly and you develop a proper edge without a burr, I can't see how a tomato skin is going to blunt a knife, because it's so soft. And even though the skin is hard to get through, I mean, this has got no chance. That's just not going to go through it. And if I were to sharpen that badly and it felt sharp because it had burrs on, it would cut through that to start off with. But I think what's going to happen is that tomato is going to eventually take off the burrs just like a strop would, and then it blunts your knife. If we've got truly sharp knives like the ones we've just done, I'm fairly sure that these aren't going to be blunted by a bloody tomato skin.
Cool. Oh.
The sound this one is making is like a crunching sound. And you can tell from the other side of the kitchen if a chef is using a blunt knife, because you can hear it in what's being cut. So bowl 1, blunt knife. Right. Christ, this is so sharp. It's kind of, if you apply too much pressure, it just goes into the board. Can a knife be too sharp? Look how thin they are. Right. Do you know what?
Yeah.
That is a better edge. I think in cutting the chives, I don't know that there's much difference visually, but I can feel a difference and hear a difference. This feels like it's dragging ever so slightly. I'll see if you can pick it up on the sound. This is the HORL sharpened knife. And this is mine. I don't know if you can pick that up. This is ever so slightly crunching the last chives. So, because this is holding the angle at a fixed 15 degrees, Simeon's been able to sharpen this with the HORL and develop a gorgeous edge all the way along it that's 15 degrees all the way along it, is the same depth all the way along it. And with the extra fine and fine grit stones, it's polished, we've stropped it. I've spent so long trying to get good at whetstone. And Simeon's just come along and used this for the first time in what looked like a horrible way, I might say, Simeon. He's cut himself as well. And he's gone and bloody made a knife that's got arguably, and we're talking incredibly fine margins, a better edge than I've been able to do. So this has highlighted areas in my whetstone technique that needed work, because by isolating the angle, you get to see how much difference it actually makes. And I've tried my absolute best to maintain that angle on today's Sharpen, and I've put the right amount of energy and effort into it and kind of developed a feel for what it's like when it's in contact with the whole edge again. And I genuinely could not do a better job with that again if I tried. And I don't think I've won this. I've been actually surprised by it, and I've had to go back and eat my words and a bit of humble pie to say, actually, this is a really great tool. I think the simplest thing to say is that it's a great, well-executed product that does exactly what it says it does, and you can't ask for more than that. So that's the HORL sharpener. The link is in the description. I'm going to go away and read the Fantastische Technisch document, and I'll see you in the next one.